was on the church property, and they were like, yeah, everybody's welcome to camp out at the pavilion. It was really rainy a lot that weekend, so they let us stay inside the pavilion, but you could camp, you could set up your tents too. There's my tent, another campsite that I set up at. All right, so you can see I'm just showing a few pictures from each state just to give you a little flavor of what the trail was like. Okay, so New Jersey and New York, how's the time been?
21.
Okay. New Jersey, 72 miles. There's some mountain ridges, wetlands, bogs, and really broad valleys, like along where the river goes through and stuff. Really beautiful. I visited my cousins for a couple days. They're actually from New York, but my cousin met me at the New York-New Jersey border. And then in New York, there's 88 miles of trail. The lowest point on the Appalachian Trail is 124 feet above sea level, and that is in Bear Mountain State Park Zoo. And I also crossed the Hudson River while I was in New York too. So here's some pictures from New York. Yeah, that's what I wanted to light up. So some of the pictures look, yeah, I like that. It just, the sky on the reflection on the lake and everything, I just thought that was really nice. That's just, you saw a lot of, I guess they're like bog bridges. They just go through the wetlands, so you're not trudging through and disturbing the habitat life that lives in the wetlands. So once they build these, you just kind of walk your way through. And you see a lot of those in New Jersey and New York too. That's my ice cream. I hiked a quarter mile off trail just to go get that ice cream. And it was worth it. It's a nice little waterfall.
Oh.
That's my foot. That was after, I think I was in New York, so I'd been on the trail 350 miles maybe by that point, and it was not getting any better. So I had to go get it checked out, but I didn't realize it at the time, but it was actually in the healing point. But I had a lot of blisters. I had blisters on my heels and on the bottom of my foot, and obviously I got some black and blue, and I think anyone that's hiked knows there's a lot of time you're coming down steeps up and your foot's just jamming into the front of your boot. So yeah, that's me. Some of the aches and pains, you know. I thought that was a nice flag. It was, it's old and worn out, but you can see it says in memory of September 11th, 2001, so. Yeah, just a picture of a foggy day in the woods. Oh, all right, time for a new slideshow here. What's that?
Cute note to yourself.
Well, that's,
Show animals now.
Yep, you gotta know where to do it. So these are the animal friends, some of the pictures that I got along the way.
What? Move the mouse?
Nope, it's gonna go automatic.
That's cool.
Yeah, little salamander. There's a moose, I don't know if you can see him, but yeah, he was in the brush. That's an owl.
Oh my god.
I'll have another picture with you. He's right in the trail.
A
Him
cow?
down there at the foot of the tree.
Cutie.
And you can see the white blaze on the tree as well.
Oh, I see.
Passing the cows.
Yeah.
That's a deer in the field. I wish I had gotten a picture of that deer that we were talking about earlier, but I didn't. Yeah, see, he must have heard me because he was.
Oh,
Isn't that a cool colored caterpillar? I've never seen one that looked like that.
Mm-hmm.
Butterfly. Butterfly. That's an eagle flying by. I don't know if you can see it very well. And this bird was flying down onto this girl's hands.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a little bird at a feeder that I saw in the park out there.
How cute. It's huge.
That's a huge,
Spider
huge
web.
spider web. It was probably like this big.
That's cute.
You like that?
Mhm.
All right. So that was some of my animal friends that I made along the way. All right, let's see. There we go. How we doing, Ben?
Good, I'll tell you at 30.
Okay. All right. So a little bit about Connecticut and Massachusetts.
Okay.
Connecticut has 51 miles. Mindy's sister Caitlin and her boyfriend Phil, they joined me in Kent, Connecticut. Oh, you doing
Make
something?
it bigger.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I forgot. You got it? I'll leave it.
You got it, you got it.
Okay. So Caitlin and Phil, they joined me in a town called Kent, Connecticut. It's a nice little college town and stuff like that. I took a 0 day. We had, I had 2 nights there. One, they came the next morning, and then we hung out all day and went in town, had some nice food, and went to a brewery and stuff like that. And then we did some hiking the next day. I made a note. My mail with my maps never made it there. I was doing something where I would take boxes and I would ship it myself, my maps. I would, because I have like all these different map books as well as some treats and stuff like that. But I would mail it, say 100 miles away, but I would carry with me my maps and my guides for about 150 miles, you know, just to have an overlap. And my maps didn't make it. They did eventually. I was almost in Vermont by the time they got to Connecticut. I forwarded them from New York and they never made it to Connecticut. So, but then the next comment where it says I got lucky, that very same day when I left, after hiking with my daughter and a boyfriend, I got to a camp, I set up, and they have these things called hiker boxes where you can leave anything you don't need. Well, say I had a big can of bug spray, and I'm like, I don't need this big can, I want a small can. I can leave it in the hiker box, and if somebody else comes hiking along and says, oh, I can use that bug spray, I don't have any. And they can take it. So this guy left his guidebook from Kent, Connecticut, all the way to Mount Katahdin. I don't know for sure, but he was probably going southbound, got to that point, and said, I don't need all this old stuff, because I've already done it. That's what I'm assuming he left it for. But I got very lucky, because at that point I had no maps. And I like to have my maps.
30.
All right, Massachusetts has 90 miles of trails. My daughter Caitlin and her friend Ashley, they took me to brunch on Father's Day, so they met me along the trail. The Appalachian Trail runs through the Berkshire Mountains, which is in western Massachusetts, for anyone that's not familiar. The highest point in Massachusetts is called Mount Greylock. It's 3,487 feet above sea level. I didn't have any views when I got there. You'll see a picture, it's just totally cloudy and overcast and rainy. Then my sister Linda and my sister-in-law Paula, they met me in North Adams, Mass. And they did Trail Magic, which for the ones that got here later, I explained what Trail Magic was. It's, hey, a little reward or a little something that you're not really expecting. Now I did know my sister was coming, but I didn't know my sister-in-law was coming, so that was a surprise. But they also brought me into town to get a resupply, which is basically buy my food and stuff for the next few days. And they treated me to lunch and a big box of Twizzlers. which I shared with a bunch of my hiking friends.
31. Dad.
Okay, thanks, Mint. All right, so pictures from Connecticut and Massachusetts. There's me at the Welcome to Connecticut, gateway to New England. I don't know if you can see that very clearly, but it's like a metal see-through hiker. Yeah, I don't know, can you see it all right?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's in Kent.
it looks scary.
Yeah, I know, huh? Nice little waterfall. That was a nice place. That was Father's Day. It was raining all day, so even after I had brunch with my daughter, they dropped me off. I hiked another 3 or 4 miles, and I got to the shelter, and they actually had a fireplace going. And most shelters are just little lean-tos that are open, and there's no, you know, if there's a fire, it's outside. But that was a nice treat. There's a nice picture of the lake. That's me hanging my laundry. Everything's always wet when you're hiking, so must have been a nice day. That's Mount Greylock, which the views are beautiful up there. If you have a nice day, I could barely see the building when I got to the top. And there's me in my rain gear. Looking happy. So Vermont has 149 miles. It's affectionately known as Vermud because there's a lot of mud. The extremely muddy trails during the rainy season, which is spring, April, and May. I got there in early June, and it was still muddy because it was still raining. Now there's a trail in Vermont called the Long Trail that it goes from Massachusetts all the way to Canada. I'm not sure the distance. It might be about 180, 190 miles. But it joins the Appalachian Trail for 100 miles. There we go. I had a bear in camp one morning that I mentioned to some of you. That was a wake-up call. Had a big bear looking for food, and so we all kind of packed up our stuff real quick and got out of there as quick as we could because we didn't want any problems. The highest mountain is Stratton Mountain, and there's also Mount Killington Ski Resort, which is higher. And we went to the summit, but it's not, the trail goes up Killington, but it doesn't go to the peak. So we took a side trail to go to the peak, and just to say we did it. So here's some pictures from Vermont. Welcome to Vermont. I got a bunch of pictures with me. There's the bunny
Oh
feet.
my God.
That's Vermont.
Oh,
That's the trail. And you can see it's just mud from, and there's bushes. Oh, you got room? Oh, watch your wire. Hold on one second. There we go. No problem. Just don't want you to trip.
I think you missed most
So as you can see, it's just a mud trail, you know, and we had many, many miles of that in Vermont. There's a sign, Mount Katahdin, 500 miles. I'm getting closer with the 2 blazes, which means it's the curve up ahead. That's just the rock decorations. There was all different types of decorations. It was like a giant rock garden at this one place. I went home for 2 weeks because I had to, and I was not going to shave. This was the day before I went back to the trail in Vermont, and I was in Rhode Island at this time, and we were going to get a heat wave, and it was going to be hazy, hot, and humid for at least 4 days, and I said, you know what, I'm shaving everything. So kind of scary. I don't know which is worse. That's the top of Mount Killington. A nice little waterfall. Family and friends. Another little slideshow. I'll try to break things up a little bit. So this is some of Min, did I make the other pictures bigger, the slideshow?
You did.
I did, okay. I didn't know if I remembered to do that. So this is just either family or people that I met while I was out there, so I'll just kind of let it scroll through. That's my nephew,
It's a real dog.
and, yeah, and his dog, yeah. And that's his girlfriend. That's the purple people. They wore everything purple. These are some of the hosts that I had. I stayed at their bed and breakfast. My friend John and I. That's my cousin from New York. And his family. There's my daughter Caitlin. With me and her boyfriend. That's my friend Amazing, is her trail name. And this lady, she was gonna turn 90 in August, and she was hosting hikers. She's been doing it for a decade or two.
Wow.
She'd host them in her house, give them a bed and whatnot and a meal. That's my sister and my sister-in-law. A couple friends that I hiked. That's Grandma on the left and Eeyore. That's Grandma, me and Grandma. That was her trail name. She's 25 years old and she's got the name Grandma.
She might not have liked that.
She enjoyed it. I don't know if you can see him. He's jumping off the bridge in a blue shirt. That was at the heat wave. Now these are people that they just live along the trail and they say, come on in and have something to drink and some eat. And that's us cooling off in the river because it was hot. There's my brother-in-law. He met me to pick me up for lunch. This couple had, see the pickup truck, they had the grill going, they had some food out. That's all a bunch of hikers sitting around just enjoying the nice trail magic. And there's us, another picture of us all together. This guy on the left, my friend John from New Hampshire and his wife and their friend. And I got my orange hat now from this one.
Getting rid of the selfie game.
And these are some of my friends that I know from New Hampshire from hiking up there, and they joined me to do Mount Washington, which is the big hike up there, the biggest mountain. I can't remember the dog's name, but he's cute. These are friends that I met up in Maine. That's part of the Appalachian Trail. You have to cross the river in a canoe.
No way.
Is the official Appalachian Trail. You're not hiking across. This is just a bunch of us relaxing on a mountain top. This is a whole group of us taking a picture. That sign is the entrance to the 100-mile wilderness in Maine, which is beautiful. I loved it up there. And sometimes you had to cross the river. There's no bridges. You got to walk right through. A place that I stayed, you had to take a boat to get there. And this is all, these pictures are from Mount Katahdin. My daughter Caitlin and her boyfriend joined me to summit Katahdin, and Mindy surprised me later. So look at that, hiking up the mountain. On top of the world, isn't that nice?
That's awesome.
The guy in the middle facing this way, that's his trail name was Martha Stewart. Yeah, you never know what you're gonna get for a trail name. And there's Mindy and her mom
Where's
right
that?
after the trip. That's in
When you're done.
Newport. Yeah, because it's like, there you go. So that's a whole bunch of people, family and friends that I made along the trail.
Yeah. Not done yet.
No?
40.
Okay. Oops. All right. So New Hampshire,
Slideshow.
I'm looking. So I got two more states, but these were the hardest states of all. I took a beating. I was very tired, very sore, my knees hurt. There were days that were very, very, very tough, but you just had to do less miles and you enjoy it. The weather was gorgeous from Killington, Vermont, till I almost got into Maine. and then the rains came back, but, so New Hampshire, 160 miles of trail, hottest terrain, long stretches above tree line, which is, like, the trees, they don't grow very big, they're little, or they just don't grow at all. Spectacular views. You saw a picture of my brother-in-law, he met me and my friend and his family, you saw pictures there. We did some hiking, and then the people that did Mount Washington. Now, Mount Washington, I used to think was the highest summit on the trail, but there's actually one down in North Carolina in the Smoky Mountains that's actually higher than Mount Washington, which I did not know until I did the trail.
How many miles a day?
I probably averaged about 10 miles a day. I'd do about 300 miles in a month, so figure about 30 days. That's a ballpark figure. So getting more than 24 mountains over 4,000 feet of elevation. Now I know in the Rockies, 4,000 feet doesn't sound like much, but in New England, you're starting at like 1,000 feet above sea level, or maybe 2,000. So you got up to 6,300 almost from Mount Washington. So you might have climbs 2 to 3 to 4,000 feet up and down. So it's kind of comparable to the Rockies. Just here you're higher above sea level, but you're starting at maybe 10,000 to go to 14,000. You know, so it's comparable in the elevation, but it's also pretty rugged. Mount Lafayette, that's my personal favorite, because I've hiked up there a lot and I love it up there. But 800 miles. Right when I got to that favorite spot of mine was the day I reached 800 miles of hiking. The Presidential Range, it's almost all above tree line, so the views are just spectacular. You got nothing to obstruct your views. And it's where all the presidents, the mountains are named after the presidents. Again, it was very rewarding, challenging. I had great weather, but it was painful, and my knees really started hurting. So here's some pictures from New Hampshire. That's looking up to the people that are at the top of one of the mountains. Nice waterfall. I'd love to tell you all about the pictures and each one with a story, but I know there's only so much time. I love this, like when you're looking at these type of pictures up here, and especially for the people that have never hiked before or anything, you can see the trail kind of traversing along the mountain. Like it comes down through there, and then it just goes up the spine of the mountain all the way to the top of that. And that's what I like. When you're above tree line, you get to see the trail ahead of you. When you're in the trees and it's lower elevation, all you see is the trees, you know. Maybe you got a little river or a lake or something, but yeah. The Cog Railway, I don't know if anyone's familiar, but in New Hampshire, to get to the top of Mount Washington, they have an auto road you can drive, but they also have a Cog Railway, which is like a steam train, and it's just runs on a cog. So some tourists like to go up that way. That's a great view of Mount Adams. But basically you go up this one, go all the way down, then you go up the next mountain, and all the way back down, and then up the next one. And it's a lot of mountains. A bridge over a river. Now that's looking, I kind of did like a panoramic view, but it's looking, I'm on Wildcat Mountain looking across. That's the Presidential Range. I had the highest peak in the middle is Mount Washington, and then you got, you know, all the different mountains that surround it. Mount Adams, Mount Jefferson, Mount Monroe, Mount Eisenhower, and everything. So another place to take shelter. I like that picture too. The sun was coming up as I was working my way up that trail. All right, and the last state that I had to do in Maine, 281 miles. So I'm thinking, yeah, I'm almost done. 280 miles to go. Oh, no. So there's a section of Maine that's called Mahoosic Notch. It's known as the hardest mile or the most fun mile. I personally thought it was fun. I loved it. What it is it's a gigantic pit of massive boulders as big as this room, some of them. And you gotta go up over these, you gotta go around those, maybe under these, squeeze between those. And it's about a mile long. You're not climbing up the mountain or down the mountain because there's these two cliffs that over millennia, these boulders probably fell from the cliff and just landed at the bottom. So it's like a maze and stuff. So some people love it and some people hate it. Maine's beautiful, but it's a very, very, very rugged terrain. I only had 9 mountains over 4,000 feet, but they were all very tough. The Appalachian Trail crosses the Kennebec River, and you have to cross in a canoe, which you saw a picture of that. And the 100-mile wilderness, that's a section of trail where I got 100 miles before I can get to the next town, and it's really not the town. The town is 20 miles away from the trail. But the wilderness is 100 miles. There's some dirt roads that pass through, but it's mostly just mountains and rivers and lakes and streams and waterfalls. It's beautiful, beautiful. There's no easy way out, so you've got to I carried 8-day supply of food, which typically the most food I would carry is 4 to 5 days. So when I did 8 days, there was a lot of extra weight in my pack for a few days. So I ate good that time.
Do they charge for the canoe?
I did, what's that?
Do they charge for the canoe?
No, it was free. They must pay the person. He goes back and forth. He catches people. You're going northbound, you wait on this shore, and he comes and picks you up. 2 people at a time. One of you has to paddle, and the other one sits in the middle. And then if anyone's coming southbound, they'll pick you up when he drops you guys off on that shore. So, and they run between like 9 and 2 is the only time. So if you get there at like 3 o'clock, you gotta wait till the next day. You gotta set up your tent. Mount Katahdin's the highest point in Maine of 5,267 feet, and it's the northern end of the Appalachian Trail. Like I said, Kate and Phil hiked with me, and Mindy surprised me in Millinocket after I finished. And you'll see a little something that she made in a minute. So basically, I finished my hike from Harpers Ferry to Mount Katahdin on September 9th and did 1,167 miles. I had originally, my goal was to go from Harpers Ferry to Katahdin in Maine. I chose to when my knees were really bothering me, like I said, in New Hampshire and Maine, so I chose to call that a day and just be happy with that. I did good. Part of me wanted to go back to Harpers Ferry and hike south to Georgia, but I figured my knees were hurting, and they're a lot better now, but they just needed a break, so I got off the trail there. This, you can see somebody going through that little hole.
Mhm.
That is Mahoosic Notch. That's some of the boulders that you gotta go up and over or around. In this one they're going through. But that gives you a reference of how big those boulders can be.
50.
Okay, so that's just pictures of the sign. I hiked over Little Bigelow Mountain, so I had to have the Little Bigelow beer. I had a few of them. Just a nice picture looking up to the sky from the trees. It's me with a nice lake in the background, crossing the road. How's that? I was probably 20, maybe 30 feet away from those people. There's 4 people there. They're at the summit. That's how cloudy and thick it was. You were like in the clouds. You could barely see 20 feet in front of you. They looked like ghosts when I first saw them. There's the mile marker for 2,000 miles. So if you had come from all the way from Georgia, you'd be at your 2,000 miles already. Then you know you're almost done. Nice waterfall. That's a There was lots of pretty views of Lake. There's a nice waterfall picture. Took a whole bunch of cool pictures. I hope you're enjoying the pictures.